Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. We're happy to have Amy and Brittany here with us from Clinton-Macomb Public Library. We're going to be talking about starting a school outreach program from scratch. They've got some tips and ideas and some things that worked and some things that didn't work to share with you today. And we're going to get started with that right now. But before we do, I just wanted to point out that slides to today's handouts, there's a link. I'm going to also put it in the chat box again for those that are just joining us. And the webinar. So please make sure you take the webinar survey at the end of this talk. So without further ado, I've unmuted Brittany and Amy so that they can share their screen here and get us going today. Thanks for everyone for being here.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Amy.
I'm Brittany.
And we're going to talk to you today about outreach. So we thought that we should start with the demographics of the population that we're serving. So Clinton-Macomb Public Library is a 3-branch system. We serve about 185,000 residents. We serve 5 public school districts. And we have over 140,000 cardholders. So the quick math will tell you that we serve 68 unique buildings, and we were lucky enough to have one of our youth librarians express an interest in outreach to preschools. So the school outreach team, for the most part, is responsible for 46 of those buildings. Our service district spans the socioeconomic spectrum. The north end is home to incredible wealth, while the south end is home to families that are struggling to make ends meet. We serve 18,000 residents from birth through grade 3 and about 24,500 residents between the ages of 10 and 19. Over 50% of third grade students in our area do not read at grade level, with rates as high as 90% in a single school. According to our most recent patron survey, 86% of residents feel that the library should coordinate with local schools to provide resources to students. So that's CMPL in a nutshell.
Hey, Amy.
Yes.
It's Kathy. Your screen is not sharing.
Oh, okay. Let us
try
fix
to pull that up? There we go. I think it. Yep. Now we can see your presentation. Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
Is it in like the full PowerPoint mode right now?
Yes.
Okay, great.
And so currently you see demographics, right?
Correct.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so that's a visual version of everything I just said out loud. So that's CMPL in a nutshell.
Okay, so what is outreach? Outreach and outreach librarians bring library services to those who cannot or are not already receiving them. Sometimes this means engaging people who choose not to use the library, but more often it means reaching out to people who either do not know about the library and its services or cannot access them for any number of reasons. In our library, this often meant students in our schools. So as we just noted, 68 schools from multiple districts, that's what we serve. And the students are not all residents of Clinton or Macomb Township, which is the case in a lot of Michigan now. So this made it very difficult to provide services. For example, some students could access databases while others could not. So going into a classroom to promote their use just didn't really work. In 2015, CMPL became the first library in the country to join the White House's Connect Ed initiative, which is now what we call our virtual library card. And virtual library card's goal is to provide increased access to public libraries for all public school students. And so to achieve that, we decided to partner with the school district we serve so that every student in those schools have access to our digital content via their student ID numbers, regardless of residency. So this includes the databases we purchase, ebooks, audiobooks, Hoopla, and any of our computers. Students can come in once with a parent or guardian to upgrade that access to full privileges. Again, this is regardless of residency. But why emphasize outreach? CMPL wrote a strategic plan, and 2 strategic priorities in that plan were to 1, grow young readers, and 2, advance student success. And so we view school outreach as critical to those priorities. And this is demonstrated in several ways, but mostly by the fact that these jobs exist. And so in spring of 2015, a full-time school outreach librarian position was created. And then in December of 2015, a part-time position was added, which in July of 2017 was made into another full-time. And these two positions remain strictly for school outreach.
So where did we begin? So Brittany, in the previous slide, talked a lot about what outreach is by definition, but for me, words and phrases like increased access and equitable services are kind of vague. So the CMPL strategic plan helps clarify exactly what our purpose is, which drives the program that we develop specifically for school outreach. Our first strategic priority of growing young readers has specific desired outcomes of that priority. Those are: 1, children enter kindergarten ready to read and write; 2, children read at grade level; and 3, the library is a highly desired community destination for children. The second strategic priority is to advance student success. And the desired outcomes of that priority are to: 1, students achieve their academic goals; 2, students are critical consumers of information and view the library as a trusted resource; and 3, students view the library as a safe space. Everything we do as school outreach librarians at CMPL should contribute to these outcomes. But before we do anything, we have to actually get into the schools. In order to do that, the teachers have to see us as valuable. And to be valuable, we have to help them reach their desired outcomes as well. So we decided to develop grade-specific products, or what we thought of as products, that would meet both the teacher's desired outcomes and the library's desired outcomes. Doing so and thinking of them as products helps us sell in quotation marks, to teachers and our bosses as good ideas and valuable to everybody's strategic plans. So I'm guessing that anyone in this webinar has probably heard of the Read or Flunk law by now, the Read by Grade 3 law. So in October of 2016, the Michigan legislature passed this law. Children are tested multiple times in grades kindergarten, first, second, and third for reading deficiencies. Educators are required to provide regular communication to parents about their child's progress, and at-home reading plans will be provided. While waivers may be granted, the law states that children whose reading proficiency is determined to be more than 1 year behind at the end of 3rd grade will not be passed to 4th grade. Exceptions can be granted for any one of the following reasons: if a student is less than 1 full year behind, if they perform at grade level on a state-approved alternative assignment, if they demonstrate grade level proficiency through a portfolio of work, if they were previously held back in grade kindergarten 1 or 2 and have 2 years of remediation, if they have an IEP or 504, if they have less than 3 years of instruction in the English language, if they have not been enrolled in their current school for at least 2 years and were not provided an individual reading plan at a previous school, if they demonstrate proficiency in all other subjects, or if a parent requests an exemption in the best interest of the student, a superintendent can rule on that. There are a lot of parts to this law, and it is easy for a parent to be confused. So many of our grade-specific programs or products are advantageous not only to help students meet state ELA standards, but also to help parents work on the read-at-home plans that are a result of this new law. For CMPL specifically, this is important because in at least 3 of the schools we currently serve, there is a possibility that there will be no 4th graders next year, that every single 3rd grader would not meet the standards set forth by this law. Okay, so with the strategic plan in mind, the 3rd grade reading law, and our successful and failed attempts to get into schools, we developed these products based off of the curriculum for each school. Thinking of our programs as products helps us develop them in ways that are marketable to both the schools and our bosses, as we previously stated. So the first one we thought of was the Kindergarten Challenge. Kindergarten is basically the new 1st grade. Teachers are building students' literacy skills. And I should note that the standards we talk about on these slides were the ones that were in place when we developed each of these programs, which has taken place over the last 4 years. They may have been slightly updated or altered since then. But the Kindergarten Challenge is 100 books for parents to read aloud with their student over the course of the kindergarten year. Teachers like this because they're trying to build their students' literacy skills, and this program by design involves the parents. Kids just think it's a fun challenge with prizes at the end. One of the key elements, though, is the advice to parents on ways to make reading to kids as beneficial as possible. These include reading slowly, following the words with your finger, pointing out details in pictures, asking the child to describe pictures, make predictions about the story, and taking time to answer questions. This is what the kindergarten challenge looks like. It's one item to pass out. It's colorful and fun. Kids like to color in the stars next to every title that they read. And we also try and make it very easy. All of these books are housed in one place in the library on a special shelf that's labeled Kindergarten Challenge. And each book also has an orange star on the spine to match the poster, so it's very easy to find on a shelf. Finishers get a sticker, a certificate, and a book of their own to keep. This benefits us as well. Picture books are now the highest circulating collection in all of CMPL. We've also reached lots of new patrons. Kindergartners obviously have to bring their grown-ups with them to the library, so we've had several instances of parents and grandparents saying that they hadn't been to a library in years and had no idea of all the things that were now available to them. Specifically, one time a family came in and English was not their first language. The grandfather cried when he learned about our world language collection. The mother hugged me when she learned that she could check out movies for free. And the little brother was immediately signed up for story times. In the meantime, the kindergartner left with 5 books from the challenge and 5 more that she picked out, and every single one of them got library cards. All of that combined is a huge outreach win. We try to make all of our programs as easy as possible for the parent. We have a dedicated space, as I said before, in our youth room where the books are shelved, and each book gets an orange star, as I stated before. We even have had schools adopt these methods to help the students find these books on their shelves as well. We own at least 10 copies of each title, and often during the school year, the shelves are near empty, as you can see in the picture on the right. However, during the summer, there are more books than allocated space, so we have to move some of them to storage, which you can see in the picture on the bottom. So the top left picture is a picture of what the shelves look like when we're just starting a kindergarten challenge for the school year.
I would say this is about end of September picture, so maybe a few checkouts.
Sure. Once we moved on from Kindergarten Challenge, we moved on to first grade, and that is a very similar program that we call 50 in First. It's very similar, and we give students a list of books that we ask them to read, and if they complete it, they get the exact same prizes as the kindergarten students. The language we use in the brochure does vary to suit the first grade ELA standards, which are displayed on your screen. There are some differences, though. There are less and slightly more complex books. We see more complex pictures, more complex picture books, easy readers, and very early chapter books. 50 in First encourages children to do some of the reading and stresses that positive reading experience will help in meeting these standards. Additionally, each of the books has a star put on the label that is blue this time to distinguish it from the Kindergarten Challenge books, but we do house them right next to Kindergarten Challenge, so it's very easy for them to continue the program. If they did it in kindergarten, they come in looking for their first grade books and know exactly where to go. And here's another example of what full shelves look like, and once we're well into the school year, what the shelves look like. In second grade, we move on to what we call our Storyteller Programs. This is when students are being asked to think more critically about what they read. This product touches on each of the ELA standards for second grade. Storytellers ask students to read 50 books out loud to their parents, guardian, caregiver, whoever, over the course of second grade. This is our first product where students can choose their own books. We do offer a suggestion sheet with books at varying levels of difficulty, but we wanted to make this very accessible for children at all reading levels and for children with varying interests. Also, if we're being honest, our CERC staff would have potentially killed us if we had asked them to put another star on another book. So much like 50 in First and Kindergarten Challenge, each student receives a handout that explains why this is important and why it's specifically important in second grade. Reading aloud enhances fluency by increasing the number of words a child recognizes automatically. It strengthens comprehension by giving children practice recognizing words, sentence structures, and organizational patterns. It develops critical thinking skills by encouraging children to read expressively, and it helps struggling readers self-monitor areas they may need additional help. The form also, of course, offers advice to parents. We tell them to choose books at the appropriate reading level, to set aside a special time for reading. We all know that story time, from story time, that this special time means putting the phones down, which can be very difficult, and being fully present for your child while they read. We also ask them to not be overly critical. It's also quite an easy plug for our Pause for Reading program, because if they read out loud to the dog, they can count it towards their Storytellers program. This is what the Storytellers handout looks like. Everything is always only one sheet, so it's easy for the little ones to keep track of. You can see the description to the parents and the spots, which we alternated colors, so it's easier for the kids to keep track of what they're writing and how many more they have to go. In third grade, we move on to True 25. Third grade is when students are expected to begin making the shift from learning to read to reading to learn. The True 25 asks students to read 25 nonfiction books over the course of third grade. Students can choose whatever books they want again, but within specific categories that we call out. These coincide with our BISET categories, and we ask that they read 3 books in animals, biography, history, people and places, science, and then 10 books in any categories of the student's choosing. We offer bookmarks with suggestions of titles that they may like within each of those categories, and the brochure also identifies key reading skills that reading nonfiction helps with. Those are 1, identifying and discussing key details and how they relate to a main idea. 2, using different text features to increase comprehension. 3, differentiating a reader's point of view from that of the author. And 4, building on pre-existing knowledge with new information. These relate directly back to some of the state of Michigan's reading standards for third grade for informational texts. The bookmarks with reading suggestions match the colors of the categories that you can see on the slide above. And now you've seen 4 of our products for different grade levels. Given, oh, I think I skipped one. Hold on. I didn't tell you about 4th grade, my bad. So in 4th grade, we asked students to complete what we call the Books Outside the Box Challenge. Diversity is a prevalent topic in our area schools at this grade level, and it is also a mentioned standard in the 4th grade curriculum in social studies. Books Outside the Box asks 4th graders to read 5 books of their choosing that they consider diverse. We define diverse as books by or about people, places, or experiences different than your own. We would never correct a student or ask them to explain why a book is diverse to them, and we trust they understand the point of the program and let them make it their own. So now you've seen 5 of our products for different grade levels. Given the number of schools we serve, that's on average over 100 teachers we have to sell each product to in order to get into their classrooms. Being able to drop reasons why these programs specifically help them meet their grade level standards is incredibly helpful. One successful product also helps you upsell in 2 ways. First, teachers in the same grade want what their colleague got. This is great for us because we now rarely have to go into a school for one class. Second, teachers in different grades hear about how happy the others are and ask what we can do for them. We pushed out each program independently. When we offered the kindergarten challenge, 50 in first grade and 50 in first grade, some teachers and many school media clerks asked when and if we would be offering something for 2nd, 3rd, and 4th graders. So the upselling happened for us.
Okay, so we're going to kind of switch gears here. We talked about our products and how this has opened doors to schools for us. This past year alone in public elementary schools, we did full school visits for 80% of our elementary schools. And we'll talk about that in a little bit when we talk about streamlining outreach. But we did 80% of our elementary schools, we did full school visits, and individual teachers within the other 20% welcomed us in as well. We've noticed success within some of our schools with the completion of this grade program, while other schools have very few students who complete this program. So while our products do a great job of selling us to schools, it isn't always doing what we want them to do in terms of access. So as a solution to this problem, we came up with deposit collections. And so what is the best way to get students to engage in reading? Provide the books. So in our southern end of our community, we have 3 elementary schools with students who are from families who are fighting to put food on the table, as we mentioned earlier. And getting to the library to pick up books is just not on their radar. So we put the books that they needed right in their classroom. Rather than having 1 or 2 students finishing in these schools, we now have entire classrooms reading the books. And we also give teachers the options of making an in-class program if they know that their students don't have an adult available to read with them regularly at home. And students are pumped about this. These schools have libraries that have books that are 30 years old or more. And it's not that the newer books are checked out and kids are reading them at home. They just don't have them. They have history books at this point that really shouldn't be read. So these books really offer the children in these schools a chance to have current books that they're excited to read. Currently, we do deposit collections for 1st and 2nd grade. So our initial funding for this program came from a generous sponsorship from our friends to the library. Our boss kind of told us to shoot for the stars when we were asking for money. So we asked for $6,000 per grade, hoping for at least a few $1,000. Yes. And somehow we were pleasantly surprised that they agreed to the full amount. So that gave us a lot of money to get the collection started and to continue buying books throughout the next couple of years that we've done this collection. But we could have managed starting this collection for a lot less. We would have just had to change the way that the bins function. And so how it works is currently we take a bin into each 1st and 2nd grade classroom. In total, we have 2 1st grade classrooms and 2 2nd grade classrooms in each of the 3 schools. So that leaves us with 8 bins total that are constantly circulating and refreshing. So we drop it off, we leave it there for 1 month, and then we bring a new one in. We bring the bin back to the library, check to see that all the books are there, and add books if we need to, and then it goes on to the next school. Each bin has around 50 books, 15 nonfiction books, 35 fiction books, and our books reflect our diverse populations of those schools. So there's always a list of books in the bin so teachers can easily figure out what has gone missing. And while we do have books that go missing completely, they usually do come back in a later bin. So each book has a barcode that matches the bin's barcode, that matches the list, which matches the rest of the books. And most books do not get damaged outside of typical wear and tear. So these books also do not go home with students currently. They stay in the classroom. We may try letting kids take them home soon. We're still kind of brainstorming that. And in the future, we want to add an audio component to this, whether it be Fox or Playaways or something like that. We'd like to add further access to these books for these students. And we're also currently building literacy activities that can pair with their IRIPs to go into these kits as well that can support their literacy goals.
So just to be clear, the deposit collections include the kindergarten or the 50 and first book titles, and then books beyond that as well. So each of the bins will include some of the titles for 50 and first, so they have the chance to complete it over the course of the year. Since they only have the books for the month and the whole class may need to read the book, we don't include those all at the same time.
Okay, so then we've talked a lot about elementary schools. The growing young readers aspect of our strategic plan is specific to young children. But like we mentioned at the beginning, we also serve several middle schools and high schools. Whereas with elementary schools, everything supports the teacher letting us in and the parents bringing the children in after. In middle schools, that shifts a bit. We still have programs that support curriculum, but we also have created a program that supports relationship building. Our biggest goal with outreach, as I said before, is access. If an elementary student is going to walk through the doors, most likely it's because they have a parent or teacher who thought, okay, this is a good enough reason to go to the library or ask students to get to the library, let's go. So our curriculum-based outreach supports this thought. But with teens, if they do not want to go to the library, they won't go. So Lit Lunch supports the relationships that drive the teens into our building. Okay, so what Lit Lunch is, this is a program. It's actually become one of my favorite things to do each month. Currently, we do this with 2 middle schools, but we're hoping to expand it out to all 6 by next year. At its very beginning, we imagined that this as a lunch book club. We would come in, we would talk about specific books, or the kids would talk about what books they were interested in, and we were so, we were excited about this. But I also went in with a very open mind in doing what the teens and middle schoolers wanted to do. And within a few months, I was bringing my button maker, I was doing slime and other fun activities. And we would still talk about books, and often I would even bring a book activity with me, but mostly they just wanted to have fun and chat about their lives. Our teen librarians also got involved in this, which is great because it just pulls in more people who are doing outreach. But we've also found things that really work for this program and things that don't. So keep in mind that these kids have a 20-minute lunch. So these activities either have to be really quick or things that they can start and take and finish later. So this is an example of one school year. This is a flyer that we send out to the schools of activities that we do. So locker magnets was a huge hit. We just took our button maker and we ordered the magnets that go in back. That was a huge hit. We've done word dice, shredded book globes. Our mystery day was book lanterns. We're going to do DIY cork boards and the other things on there. But we have 3 years worth of planned programs now that we can keep recycling and adding to and changing up.
It's important to remember the crafts have to be able to be done not only quickly, but while they're eating.
While they're
they
eating,
have
yeah.
to eat at the same time.
Which you can imagine some of these things hasn't worked. I'm going to go back a slide. If you can see over here, that first picture, we did vinyl painting. Hot. It was a hot mess. I wouldn't recommend doing that, but the kids enjoyed it still, but just not something I would ever repeat. So on average, I see in one school, I see 50 students throughout 4 lunches. So typically I have between like 15 and 20 students, but occasionally I will get a lunch where I just have 1 or 2 students. And then at another school I do this at, they have only 1 lunch that they do it within, and there's 60 students at once. And I'm not going to lie, it's just pure chaos for 25 minutes, and it's really fun. So this is Lit Lunch. And then we also do database training. This is usually a full day 2-person job. We go into schools and introduce students to tutor.com, databases specific to CMPL, and MEL databases. I want to note here once again that having our students each affiliated with our virtual library card does make it way easier to provide this database training, because we can ensure our students have access to every one of our databases regardless of address. However, when we do go into school without this access, we stick to our awesome MEL specific databases, and we just mention that things like ebooks and audiobooks and tutor.com are an option for them if they want to come in and get a library card. So a couple of our private schools haven't come on to the virtual library card yet, and this is an example of when I would offer them those alternative services. So whole school database training is a huge undertaking. Before we can even get in there, we coordinate with teachers to get every student's name and ID number. Then we have to look each one of them up in our system to ensure that there's no blocks on their records. And if the students have a library card instead of a student ID number associated with them, we have to note that for them and bring it into the school and let them know what their number is, because they certainly aren't carrying it on them in their book bag. It's no small undertaking. And at the end of January, this January, I have 3 straight days of database training coordinated with 3 other librarians, and we're doing an entire middle school in 3 days. So it can be a lot of work to do database training. Another program that we offer is something called the Right Read. So we haven't completely eliminated the curriculum-based program. So the Right Read really does reflect our grade program products that we mentioned earlier, and it's a continuation of this. So in this product, during middle school, they have to read 100 books. And they can I'm sorry, not 100 books. They have to read for 100 days each school year. So they check off a day on a calendar map and they go through, and if they complete that successfully, they can come into the library and they can get their prize, which is a book. And they can keep repeating this program year after year. They can do it at least once per school year though. And finally, College Crash Course is the next program that we run. This we introduced to high school students around the time where they're taking SATs, and we introduce them to the SAT or the PSAT prep if we're doing younger grades materials that are available. There's also scholarship materials available through databases and materials on Michigan colleges that we expose them to as well. If you have not utilized these on MEL, like Learning Express Library and just a large array of Michigan college materials that they have, this is a great program to do that with and to be exposed to that for. So what else do we do? As Amy mentioned before, we were lucky enough to have one of our children librarians do outreach for preschools and daycare. So though Amy and I no longer do this unless we're filling in, we do have quite a bit of preschool outreach that is done through CMPL. We do 5th grade Battle of the Books. I'm sure you are all familiar with this program. We're lucky that we do get to go into schools and directly promote this. It's kind of our big finish after our grade programs. So this is what we do as our big 5th grade program instead of having a direct product. We do grade specific book talks. This is a great seller for March's Reading Month. We offer this to grades 3 through 5, and although we can absolutely do a book talk for younger grades, book talks are just a fun way to invite kids into the library and get them excited about books that they may not have heard of. And we now have teacher requests. In addition to March's Reading Month, when we do go in there, we also will do story times for the younger grades if they choose to do that. It's just another chance for us to do another full school visit and see all the kids at once. Then of course we do tours for the library for all grades. Before in our library, before Amy and I started, there was a rule that they could only do tours in March. And so this is gone, but sometimes that legacy still lives on about the only tours in March, and we'll get calls that say, hey, I know it's November, but can you do a tour? And we're like, yeah, we can do a tour whenever. And then we do something we call literacy nights. We host multiple of them throughout the year. What we do is we collaborate with one of the largest district's principals to provide a district-wide literacy night that focuses on a theme of both of our choosings. And then we'll do different literacy activity stations set up all around the library. And we usually see around 350 people at this, parents and kids. And it just is a really great way to invite all the kids from our districts into the library and get them coming in there. Of course, we do summer reading presentations. That last week, 3 weeks of our school year is dedicated to full school visits. Usually it's done assembly style and we present summer reading to these students. A lot of our schools now use our program as their summer reading program, and they incentivize it with like a beginning of the year school party, or if they do like a raffle ticket system within their school, they'll offer those off and other fun stuff like that. And then Amy and I still do a small amount of in-house programming. We just want to make sure that the kids who see us at school also see us in the library, and we're not just the people that come into their schools.
So as school outreach librarians, we always get asked if we get summers off, and then we laugh a lot because we wish. But no, we don't get summers off. We're just as busy in the summer as we are during the school year. And most of that is because we've formed partnerships with some of the parks and rec departments that we serve. And it's because it's important for the library to be a part of community events so that the students we serve continue to see us throughout the summer. It's good for name recognition, and it helps us to continue to build relationships with the students, but also with the administrators and the teachers and the parents who are bringing students to these events. So some of the things we do in this regard, we set up a pop-up library at several community events, including 4 themed picnics every summer, movie Under the Stars, and a couple of Touch-a-Truck events. Pop-up libraries are a lot of work just in the amount of stuff that we have to bring. But it's a great place, it's a great thing to do for the library's name to be seen by a lot of people. And quite frankly, these are people who are likely to vote in villages. This summer, we partnered up with one of our school districts who provides foods for the several meetup and eat up, and I think it might be even read up locations now. I'm not quite sure what the name is, but we go out once or twice a week to the meetup and eat up locations in our service district, and we set up activities for the kids to do after they've eaten lunch. We do everything from bringing out giant games to doing crafts, and then we also bring summer reading to these students. So we bring stories to read with them in case they don't have access to books at home. They can complete summer reading or a modified version of it at the Meetup and Eat Up programs that that we attend. What did you want to say something? Oh, I didn't know what you were pointing at. Sorry. And then each year we also reach out to the local day camps in our service district to bring summer reading to them. So we go at the beginning of summer, we introduce the program, and we give them pre-made posters to hang. Every time a child reads at the camp, they can mark it on the poster, and at the end of summer, we come back with every level of prize and pass it out to them. So and so they can earn prizes just like the kids who are able to come into the library on a regular basis can. The other thing I didn't talk about is our summer cart collection. So at area summer camps, we, much like deposit collections, we take an actual reading cart in, like one of our librarians' carts. We take it and we fill it with books, and we go in almost once a week and change out titles and bring summer reading to those students as well.
One of the biggest difference for our summer cart collection versus our deposit collection are because it's just temporary. It's like 8 weeks that we do it. We actually pull just books off of our shelves to fill the cart collection instead of having a dedicated budget. Whereas our deposit collection lasts a solid 9 months, I think they would start missing those books. So
that makes sense. I'm sorry, I don't know what you're pointing at, Brittany. The mall part. Oh, and then we also are lucky enough to be in the same city as a very popular mall, Partridge Creek. And so we've also developed a partnership with them where we go in and we do story times there. We sign people up for summer reading there. We've even got adult librarians going in and doing senior sign up and things like that. So we really try and explore as many community partnerships as we can. Even though we're school outreach librarians, we constantly want to figure out how we can continue to serve these students even when they're not in school.
All right, so we have painted this as roses and sunshine so far, but there are things that have not worked in outreach, and I'm sure you will find those in your program as well. So first off, one thing that didn't work was divided school districts. So of the 5 districts that we serve, only 2 of them are completely ours, meaning that all of the schools are located in Clinton Township or Macomb Township. Others are served by multiple libraries within the Suburban Library Cooperative. At first, this was very challenging. We would give students access to our services in middle school, but then they would come to high school and they no longer were connected to those services. But this has turned into a real positive for us as we have partnered with other community libraries around us, and now they have similar offerings, including virtual library card. The overlap, we are busy and we can't really take on much more, but determining who does what isn't always very cut and dry for us. We just mentioned a lot of those community partnerships. And then when we're contacted by a school that serves special needs adults, is that us who takes it on, or is it the adult librarians who take it on? So there's questions like that that pop up now and again where who's doing what.
In the beginning, back when CMPL was deciding, hey, we should probably reach out to schools, they originally decided to assign every full-time staff member a school, or anyone above 22 hours was assigned a school to reach out to. And that worked about as well as it sounded, which is not that well. So everybody was doing something different. We had staff members who, of course, thought, well, I called the school and they didn't call me back, so that's the end of that. So it was a nice effort, but in theory, but in practice, it just simply didn't pan out at all.
So then there's the we will do anything approach. So when we first started outreach, we would do anything. Conferences, yes. Kindergarten roundup, yep. And it quickly got a little out of control. So we had a staff member who had over 100 hours of comp time. We were pulling in other staff members to do outreach. The products really helped us balance that so we could add programs that we thought could be really useful. And sometimes it's okay to say no. We like to say yes, usually, and we like to say it more than we say no, for sure. But sometimes no is okay. Individual school visits, kind of. So individual school visits are great, and I'm not knocking them. They were our bread and butter for a really long time, but they take a lot to schedule, and sometimes I would go to a school 3 times in 1 week. They really helped us build relationships, but once those relationships were built and our programs were all created, we moved on to a more efficient way of doing things, which leads me to streamlining outreach.
Wait, before we do this, can we talk about one more challenge that we actually didn't put on a slide? So as you can probably tell from the things we've said, Brittany and I are outside of the building a lot. However, we still have desk responsibilities. Scheduling became a real challenge. So in that sense, a set desk schedule became absolutely mandatory for us to carry on. Another challenge we face is staff members who we don't necessarily work closely with just constantly seeing us out of the building. So it became very important that we we're very vocal about what we're doing, where we're going, the programs we're offering, the services that we're offering, so we could get complete staff buy-in as well.
Yes. Okay, so scheduling visits at school. I probably sound like a broken record, but the library day, actually, I don't think I mentioned this. Library day is one of the best things that we ever thought of. We do visits 3 times a year to majority of our schools, and we get them done in 3 hours or less, and we see the entire school during that visit. It just leaves us a lot more time to go into schools who really need more of our attention, more of our outreach. But we want to make it clear we're not replacements for school librarians. Schools need media specialists. So 3 visits is enough for us to go into a school and provide them with what the library does and the access. So access is the name of the game, and the outreach program, we remind students and teachers that we are here. We have a lot of awesome services, and you should come in and use them. So 3 visits a year for the most part in our schools is very effective in what we're trying to accomplish, and we get to see so many students this way.
So just to be clear, what those 3 visits are is in the fall, when the school year just starts, we push out our program. So we go into a school and we see all of the kindergartners at the same time, and all of the first graders at the same time, and all of the second graders at the same time, and so on. And we tell them about Kindergarten Challenge and 50 and First and Storytellers. Go ahead.
Okay, relationship building. Oh, you didn't say the other 2 visits.
Oh, the other 2 visits. I'm sorry. The second visit we do each year is March's Reading Month, where we go in. Brittany talked about how for K through 2nd, I think, we do story times. Yeah. And for 3 through 5, we do book talks. Mm-hmm. And then the 3rd visit is our summer reading visit. And schools are liking these streamlined visits so much that they book their summer reading visit the year before. Yeah. So it's becoming easier to schedule, actually. Easier.
And we will get into principal meetings now, where we will schedule with the principal at the beginning of the school year, which is really nice. Okay, so relationship building. This has involved a lot. Just guessing the best time to send emails about specific programs requires some finesse. If you do it too early, you're forgotten. And if you do it too late, well, you're at the end of September and now you're cramped for time. We also have to be the flexible ones. I mentioned earlier, yes, it's okay to say no sometimes, but more often than not, you are rearranging and trying to say yes. And then who do you contact? There's that teacher versus media clerks versus principals. Who do you go to first to schedule? I had a sticky situation this past year where a principal felt like I had contacted the wrong person and should have gone to him directly. But I had been scheduling these visits with the media clerk for 3 years, and the vice principal told me to continue that way. So now I have these 3 great relationships with 3 separate people at a school, and there was a miscommunication as to who do I go to schedule the full school visit? And you never want to burn a bridge, so you really have to be sensitive about navigating that territory. So when we were starting out, though, we would contact pretty much anyone until someone would let us in.
It's also really important in relationship building to do what you say you're going to do. So it's incredibly important to be on time. Classroom minutes are precious, precious things to these teachers. And so, excuse me. And so it's important that you are meeting your obligations.
So Amy already mentioned this, but balancing your in-house work with your outreach, with the amount of time you're out of building, really it only works if we are set on a schedule in the building as well. So if you're thinking, well, maybe if I had a more flexible desk schedule, for me, I know when my desk is and I schedule my outreach around that versus the other way around. And then 2 successful. So even with this streamlined outreach approach, 2 people can only do so much. And if you are balancing doing outreach in your building with doing another job, it's going to take up a lot of time. So our first request for a school visit comes 2 weeks before school started. This is both great and difficult. So when we create a schedule, we try to push things out. But teachers want you when they want you. So sometimes you just have to kind of go off of that whole streamline approach and just go see a teacher's classroom. So then how do we measure success? So how do we know that what we're doing is working? or even worth it. So of course, success to students, prizes. If a student gets a prize, they feel like they've been successful. When they complete the program, that's their success with the prize. And then we have success for parents. Parents feel students are exposed to more literature. They have quality time with their kid. And then there's reading successes. And this gives them a tangible way to work on their child's grade level proficiency and an easier way for them to pick out books with their children. So it answers the question for them, what should I be reading? What should my child be reading? And then success to teachers. Students are meeting reading goals and have a renewed interest in reading. We go to a school and there's a spike in interest level of students with reading. And this is true for book talks as well as our programs. So it's nice to take some of that burden off the teachers. Then libraries. All the above is true, but then there's the intangible. We are asked back. Teachers now seek us out. We are scheduling stuff before school starts. That's always a good sign that we are doing something right. Teachers are using our programs as part of their regular class time. The picture on the right is a whole group of students who completed the Storytellers Challenge, and we got to come into their classroom and give them books. But then are we hitting our strategic plan goals? We mentioned earlier that this is the reason we have jobs. So we have to be conscious of that as well and adjust where necessary. And then kids recognize us when coming into library. We've had families who've come in who've never been to a library, as Amy has said, and it's always so rewarding to have that experience. And then, of course, their stats. So outreach and CMPL seem to have started with a really flimsy attempt at 4 people in 2010.
We weren't here then.
We're not really sure what happened, and we're not really sure what scarred them so bad that they didn't try again until 2012. We already mentioned in 2012, we had the initiative where every single person would take a school and attempt to do outreach in that. And that did yield some results with 900. But we mentioned that staff buy-in only lasted so long. So in 2013, they really only saw 37 people. And then we'll skip ahead to 2015 when we started with having a dedicated school outreach librarian. We jumped in stats. We went from 264 people to over 10,000 people seen. This is a huge increase, but even bigger than that, between 2015 and 2017, when we had 2 full-time librarians doing this job, we went from seeing 10,000 people to seeing 25,000 people. And stuff that's changed for us in those 2 years is typically we're now, in 2015, we had librarians working comp time. But once we streamlined our approach, typically we're just following the schedule of a school schedule. So we're working a typical school day while occasionally doing a Saturday program in the community or doing an occasional conference in the evening. So this, of course, for us to have grown from the beginning of school outreach with 10,000 people to seeing over 30,000 kids a school year, for us, this is one of the best ways to measure success, is how many people we're seeing and that our products not only work, but it produces.
So if there are any questions, we are happy to answer them.
Yeah. Thank you, Amy and Brittany. That was fantastic. I always have lots of questions. I've heard various forms of this presentation, but Mimi already put a question in the chat box. So for everybody who's on, you're welcome to open up the chat box. It's along the black toolbar you have. It might be under 3 little dots or the symbol of a chat. And Mimi wanted to know, Amy and Brittany, what did you do in the pop-up?
At the pop-up library?
Yes.
So what we do is we typically bring a bin of books, a lot of picture books, but some chapter books as well, because some older kids come up. We have the ability to create library cards. We bring laptops so we can create library cards. Depending on the event, we often have a branded giveaway that we're putting in kids' hands, which draws them to the table. We play music. A lot of our goal at the pop-up library is to just be seen in the community and talk to kids and remind them that we're here. So it's checking out books, it's making library cards, but mostly it's just talking to them and seeing how their summer's going.
And you have like a iPad to do checkouts and stuff.
We bring a
on?
laptop. We bring
A laptop.
laptops typically. Yeah. And then we have a hotspot as well for
Great.
the internet connection.
And then Anna wants to know, what do you actually measure for your statistics?
We count the number for the statistics that we're reporting in. We're counting the number of kids, teens, or adults that we see.
Correct. And I will add that that goes into your state aid report at the end
Yes.
of every fiscal year.
Correct.
So definitely make sure you're counting teens, children, and adults separately. And I know you are at Clinton Macomb there.
Yes.
Anna also wanted to know, do you change the book titles in your programs each year? So, you know, the 50 and first and such, do you change those titles?
That's a great question. We change them every few years. So we do have a goal within our book list to maintain 25% of those book titles to be diverse titles. So that's something that we're updating and growing. But then also a lot of titles just simply go out of print and we can't order them anymore. So those are always pretty easy choices to add new and fresh titles onto our list.
Currently, we update every 3 years.
Every 3 years, yeah.
Wonderful.
And we don't do kindergarten challenge and 50 and first in the same year. We try not to, unless I get, crazy and find books that I really want to put on first grade.
And part of that too is we do preprints of our brochures that we bring along to schools. So we will order
we order enough for years at a time.
Yeah. So we want to wait till those run out too. So we're not throwing
money away.
Yeah.
Great. I'm not seeing anything else in chat, so last chance to put a question in chat. And I'll ask, obviously there's huge success with those numbers, those stats we're seeing, and the qualitative, experience where the kids are recognizing you and everything. But if you're a very small library, very few staff members, do you have maybe just one outreach program you would say start with this one?
I would start with kindergarten challenge.
Okay.
You've set the foundation right? You've got them right where they start. And if they enjoy kindergarten challenge, they want to do something else in first grade. They ask you, are you going to come to our class again?
Great. All right. And then Laura's asking, where should you start if you don't have a dedicated outreach librarian? So that was a very similar question. She apologized for typing that too slow.
I think sometimes Brittany and I forget that we're very lucky where we are. And so we have, 2 people dedicated to this job and resources to devote to these programs and things like that. But really, these are things that can be adapted at any level, I think, because a smaller library is likely not serving 62 different buildings. And so you don't have to be out of the building as much as perhaps we do at Clinton Macomb Public Library. So if I was in a smaller library, I would choose one school that I serve, and I would start with one classroom, and I would make a goal to get in one classroom, and I would want to do such a good job that that teacher tells the other teachers in my school that you want this person to come to you. So I think your very first goal should be get in a single classroom and offer them something that they want. Maybe that's not the kindergarten challenge. You know your community best, but offer them something that they'll want you to come back and do every single fall.
Wonderful. And one last question. Mary Beth wants to know, what is your budget? And I might swing that in a different direction. Do you know maybe what percentage of the youth services budget is dedicated towards outreach? Whichever way you guys are comfortable answering.
If you were to look at the outreach budget that Brittany and I are personally responsible for, it's maybe 1% of 1% of the Clinton Macomb Library budget. The only money we're really spending is printing on brochures, mine and Brittany's gas, and giveaways at summer events.
There is a certain amount of materials that will go into Lit Lunch, but just like any other library program, I'm making this as cheap as possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
I will use materials until like and find the cheapest solution on
There's
how to
a
do
joke
something.
every budget year that our budget is so small that they won't even create a line item
Yeah,
for
we
us.
don't.
Like we joke about who's going to have our budget this year because it's minuscule. So those are like, because we print kindergarten challenge once every 3 years, that just goes into the CMPL printing budget that year. So really it's mine and Brittany's gas money and branded giveaways at summer events.
Yeah.
Great. Dorianne asks, what do you suggest you talk about in an initial meeting with a principal?
That's such a good question.
So we are lucky enough that now we've created an outreach brochure that has all of our services. So just coming prepared with what you're willing to offer and what you're ready to offer is a great starting point.
We also didn't start with principals. So I know that we've been in presentations before where people have said, oh, we have to start with the principal. And if that's true, I would start with talking about the fact that you know what their ELA standards are. You know that they probably don't have a media specialist in the state of Michigan. Unless they do, you should obviously know that ahead of time. And then I would talk about why your programs can benefit their students. Personally, I prefer to start with a teacher. I would rather have a teacher give me their classroom time than a principal tell a teacher to give me classroom time and have that teacher resent me.
Also, like if they do have a media specialist or a media clerk, that's another great person to partner with at some point in this process. We have some really awesome media clerks that really it really complements our services. But I
Great.
will also add that with principals, the virtual library card was probably the jumping off point of our discussion with them. So we started our partnership with our director having conversations with the superintendent. So that's how far up that conversation went as an initial jumping off point to try to create that partnership with virtual library card.
Great. Mary Beth had a follow-up regarding budget. So the Youth Services Department is responsible for ordering the books for those programs.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I
Great.
believe it just comes out of the general book budget.
And I'll also add that we've progressively ordered more copies of those books as we needed them, so they didn't necessarily.
So now we have like 10 to 12 of each copy of, like, say, a kindergarten challenge book, but I think we started with 2 of each.
Gotta start somewhere.
Right.
And also
Great.
that reflects our checkouts of those books. So
Great.
depending
And
on the size of the library, you may not need that many copies, or you may.
I've been in your library when those shelves are pretty empty. And it's fantastic to see.
More copies.
Yeah, but there's always something there that they can pick and,
Yeah.
you know,
Right.
or
But
put a
again,
hold.
if you're not serving, 50 schools, you don't need that many copies of these things.
That's right. Well, thank you, Brittany and Amy, so much. Always learning something new with you guys.
Thank you.
On the screen again is the handouts. You can find them at that link, or today's survey, which I encourage you all to take. It helps me figure out what more you're looking for in the library world in terms of webinars. So please do fill out that survey. And a big, again, thank you to Brittany and Amy. I see some thank yous popping up in chat.
Thank you so much for letting us do this, Kathy. And I'm going to encourage anyone who has any additional questions, please feel free to email us. We're happy to answer or send anything that might be helpful.
Wonderful. Thank you. Lots of great ideas. All right, everyone, have a wonderful Wednesday and stay warm.